Chag Sameach, everyone. It is that time you've been waiting for, an update from Israel with our very own live from Modi'in, Hanok Young. Hey, what's going on over there?
Hey, Mike, how are you? Well, it's really interesting. A few months ago, when President Trump announced his alleged deal of the century, within a half an hour.
You mean there was life before COVID?
There were a few things that happened. There were a few things that happened in 2020. Essentially, for everyone else, what's great is no one is going to get a year older this year because basically the year's been canceled.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, okay. So President Trump has his announcement of the deal of the century. Within a half an hour of the press conference, you and I already had recorded an expose of what it meant for Israel, that it was calling for the creation of a so-called Palestinian state, that 70% of Judea and Samaria would be given away. We were voices in the wilderness. Here in Israel, people were like jumping up, high-fiving, and even now, many of our friends, our mutual friends, the last few weeks have been saying, Bibi's going to declare all this wonderful stuff. Just this past week, all of a sudden here in Israel, they read and realized exactly what we had realized months ago, that it was calling for the creation of a so-called Palestinian state, that every Jewish community in Judea and Samaria would be an enclave circled. I think there were 17 different checkpoints to go in and out of Jewish areas. It was insane. But here in Israel, all of a sudden, they just realized that.
Yeah,
Welcome to the Knesset.
Yeah, here's an idea. Maybe we could start a party and you and I could get elected to the Knesset together. Don't.
So much to say on that one, and let's not.
Yeah, let's go to another place. Hey, it is coming up on the festival of Shavuot. You guys will be entering into that tonight. And
yes.
Okay, so prior to this is Barry and I were talking about this on our program, how being in a Pentecostal church, which I know that scares you, just the thought of, it scares me too occasionally. But
I spoke in one once. I did.
So that was kind of like the service of the year for a Pentecostal, because we went to the book of Acts and all the events that are recorded there. Prior to this year, what is a typical Shavuot for you guys in observant Judaism? I'm not talking about the, Mea Shearim, but for you, kind of the average run-of-the-mill Israeli kind of person that is observing the Torah. What is that day like to you?
Okay. Shavuot is typically characterized by study.
Okay.
Now, in some communities, it's a full textual type study. Other communities is a series of speakers. If you're not an elderly community, you learn throughout the entire night. And say the morning service at sunrise. That's kind of cool when you're a kid.
Yeah.
It's not so cool anymore.
Yeah.
But the idea of spending time not only on study per se, but hopefully re-internalizing the concept of what it means as a people, as a nation, to receive the Torah, and how do you live with it?
Okay, so it's about, we could say that it's about the study of Halakha, of how do you live with How do you walk it out?
Yes, the term halacha, we don't use the sort of literal translation of how do we walk it out.
Mm-hmm.
When someone will say, like, I'm going to a lecture on halacha, it's more cut and dried, this is what this means, this is not
Okay.
what it means, kind of thing.
Okay.
But conceptually, I absolutely agree with you. It's a sense of, and again, here's the big difference. It's the national redemption of the people of Israel. It's the nation of Israel. It's not a personal thing, but rather the nation of Israel.
Okay. So the unity of the people. Now,
Exactly.
it's my understanding that it's a tradition in much of Judaism to read the book of Ruth.
Yes.
And this is known as the birth date of King David.
Among other things, yes.
Okay. So why is it that Ruth is important in this day?
Okay. I'll give you my understanding of it, my conception. Because the Torah was, it's interesting. Let's digress for a second. In the Bible, in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible, it only speaks of two types of people, and those not.
Okay.
So it's the broadest definition of who the Torah is for. As you know, I'm all about the restoration of Judah and Ephraim, all about all of Israel throughout the world. To me, Ruth is the example of someone whose soul was called to the people of Israel. Because, people speak about Ruth as, quote unquote, converting to Judaism. But in reality, if you look at the words to her mother-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
it was the joining herself to the nation of Israel.
So, okay. So maybe that therein lies, maybe we stumbled over something that is of utmost importance here. In that the word, both from Christianity, from Messianic circles, from Judaism, the word convert is a great stumbling block, because somehow that word is saying, well, what you were doing is not the right thing, and you need to change everything and do something different. Whereas the heart of Ruth all along was about joining to a people and to, your people shall be my people, your Elohim shall be my Elohim. I don't see that as conversion. I see that as a declaration of the opportunity is now there to make and let me use an incredible Christian term here, to make a public declaration of something that maybe I didn't realize was there to begin with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
the term conversion is misapplied, misunderstood, and inappropriate. When you look at Ruth, it's not that.
Yeah. Now let's bring in another, and I know we're having a little bit of internet problems here today, but let's bring in another person, Orpah. I think that this woman, literally for me, is a picture of many of the people that say that they desire to be in covenant with the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, in that she came to the border She cried, had emotion, kissed her mother-in-law, and went back to her own country.
I have to tell you, that little vignette, which most people don't deal with when they Miglat Ruth, the scroll of Ruth, the book of Ruth. To me, that is the essence of many of the people in this movement. You know, I posted something just the other day about so many people who've been leaving to go off where? We don't know. In other words, they were part of it. They like it. They like the worship service. They like the dancing. They like the singing. They like the fellowship. But when they got to the border, when the going gets tough, when they really have to choose, when they really have to stand up and stand with Israel, when they really have to connect to all the people of Israel, including their Jewish brothers and sisters, that's when they say, you know what? I'm out of here. Tears will be shed, kisses given, and hit the road, Jack.
Okay, could we not say the same thing about American Judaism?
I wouldn't be as generous in speaking about American Judaism.
See, if people thought that you were just going to take that and roll with, but I know you better than that.
No, yeah, this is the underhand softball pitch at the World Series. I've got to swing at it. My Jewish brothers and sisters in America are missing the last train out of Dodge. Oh, it's interesting, this whole COVID-19 thing, there's expectation that when this settles down, there'll be a large aliyah immigration from the United States. I'm telling you here, now, today, way in advance, it ain't gonna happen.
You know,
they are living, let's use biblical terms, they're living in the flesh pots of the exile, which they don't call exile, they call it the diaspora, the dispersion.
Yeah.
They're living in the land of garlic and leeks. It's so much easier in America. And here it is, the state of Israel. I could go on for hours about this, but the state of Israel is sitting there. Redemption is knocking at the door.
It's fascinating to me, Halok, how, this whole thing of two houses, and I watched your 3 minute on who is Ephraim and Judah. I mean, just 3 minutes that are so important in our interpretation of Scripture. But it's amazing how these two groups of people are so different, but yet there's so much the same. For today in many Christian churches, they're buying more chairs for the great revival that's coming. It's the same message. It's like after 9/11, churches were filled for about 3 weeks. Now, is that the fault of the system? Is that the fault of the heart of the people? Is that the fault of the leadership? Is that the fault of, well, yes, it may be D, all the above. For me, I think that part of the problem is people went back to churches and didn't really receive a true message. And maybe the same thing is true in American synagogues, that there's not a message of truth for people to follow.
Well, the message of truth to my brothers and sisters, my co-religionists outside of Israel, would be time to go home.
Mm-hmm.
My teacher, Rav Meir Kahana, taught that 50 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the time. But, it is what it is.
So it's all about, the book of Ruth is about following a person who's in covenant. Um, and you better follow the right person. To quote, interesting enough, to quote a mutual friend of ours, um, um, and I can't get the name right now. Lev Haolam.
Nazi Rome.
Nazi Rome. Okay, thanks. My brain's going in too many different places there this morning. To quote Nazi Rome, we were there at his house with our tour group, and this subject came up about, in the last days, the people will grab the tzitzit of a Jew and say, "Take us with you." And he said, in grabbing the tzitzit, make sure make sure it's connected to the right Jew.
Right, Jew. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I don't know that he really understood the prophetic significance of that to the level that many of us in the room did. But this whole concept, because as we come to Shavuot, one of the things of Shavuot for you and I that we agree on absolute is that the Torah was given. I think we agree on this. Let me make sure. The Torah was given to a people to then share with the nations. The Torah was not given so that a people could just say, "Na na 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 na, I got it and you don't," and we're going to let you.
I've got the whole truth.
Yeah. We got the whole truth, but I'm going to let you have a little bit of truth because we are more special than everybody else. So you're in agreement. The Torah was given to the nation of Israel to be a light to the nations with the Torah. Is that correct?
Absolutely, 150%. There is no argument about that.
So what would you say to the people, whether in Judaism or of the movement that calls themselves Noahites? Explain that one for a moment there, Lucy.
Lucy, you've got some explaining to do.
You're better at that than Rico is. I told him, he did that one time and I said, "Rico, that is the worst impression of Desi than anybody," but that's another subject.
Okay. Do you know what? Next time I see him, I'll help him out.
Maybe
I'll tutor him a little bit. Yeah. I have struggled with the Noahide concept for many years. I don't fully get it. I'll be with you. I don't fully get it. What I can really appreciate of it is the sincere desire to cleave to the Torah and to live it as best you can.
Right.
I feel it's falling short because my understanding of the restoration is it's all about Judah and Ephraim and those associated with them.
Right.
Kind of like your. So again, I can, where it's coming from, it's not something that I personally relate to and understand.
Well, the whole concept of the Noahite, and this is there 7 or 9 things? I can't remember. Do you?
7.
7. Okay.
7, but it's actually, it's 7, but it's actually more. But it's referred to as the Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach, the 7 mitzvot of the sons or the children of Noah.
Okay, because I have read those 7, and what's interesting is that "you shall not kill" is not a part of the 7. So I've always, I've thought, okay, well, if you're going to follow the Noahite, then you can kill and steal and covet and all of those things because they're not in the big 10 that you're supposed to be. In the end, it doesn't make sense.
Well, listen, it's I don't want to put myself in a position of attempting to defend something that I don't, as I said, I don't relate to it. There are things, we all relate to certain things. There's kind of a visceral pull where, something resonates in your soul. I'm not big into mysticism either.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It just means it doesn't relate to me.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of guy that, wants to live in the text, wants to live in the Tanakh and the Hebrew Bible, and understand it that way,
Hmm. Well, to me, the Noahide thing is kind of a minimalist. I mean, it's a way to separate, and as you brought out originally, that the Almighty has this amazing. There's some things He does that are, I guess He just kind of figures, since He is who He is, that He can make the rules, which is, as much as we want to complain about that, He just doesn't get nervous when I do. But He is the one that separates people into two groups of people. You're either in covenant and you're called Israel, or you're out of covenant and you're called the nation. It's really, to me, is not more difficult than that. And so it's people that are trying to put people in different boxes.
Yeah, I've often wondered, when the time comes for the nation of Israel to be able to fully share the Torah with everyone around the world, where do Noahides fall in that? I don't know. I really, and anyone who's listening to this, I'm not being evasive. I've never studied it.
Mm-hmm.
It just something that doesn't ring my bell.
So let me ask you, I don't know if you know the answer, if you got I'm sure you have an opinion, because I've never seen you without an opinion on something, or me for that matter, but why is it that the Jewish people as a whole today, and that's a broad brush statement, but we know people that are in.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You
Let me run that again. Why is it that Jewish people as a whole have a problem?
You're frozen.
Okay. Tell me if I come back at any time here.
I hear you.
Okay. I'll try to shorten it. Tell me why the Jewish people as a whole have a problem with the nations wanting to observe the Torah.
Okay, I'm not so sure I would say the Jewish people as a whole.
Okay.
That's one element, and I can think of, just a conversation I had the other day with our dear friend Rivka Lambert Adler, who's done, extensive work in teaching nations to people who are not Jewish. It's a sense that those throughout history who've gotten some knowledge of the Torah have then used it against us. And you could think of the disputations of the Catholic Church.
Okay.
What we're living in AIDS, are there people around the world who are actually, and I never get to use this term, so I'll use it now, philo-Semitic, who, seemingly like Jews. Now, there is a movement worldwide, inexplicable, of a hunger for the Torah. Now, having said that, it's only us here in Israel who are able to share with people from around the world. Let me explain that. I don't believe the American rabbinical establishment is able to focus beyond their own little communities to do that. Okay? It's a different setup. Each synagogue is, the rabbi is a paid functionary in America of their synagogue. If they're not serving the board in their community, they don't, people aren't raising money for the salaries of the rabbis to be able to reach out to people around the world. So that's only something from Israel. And I'll be honest with you, I think the way we live our Jewish lives here in Israel is far more authentic than anyone attempting to live a Jewish life outside of the land of Israel. Period. End.
Well, I mean, yeah, how can you live a Jewish life? How can you live a Jewish life in exile when you have the ability to leave exile?
Yeah. And it's not contingent upon a certain price point of you selling your home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not contingent on you having the same disposable income here in Israel that you have in anywhere else. Okay. Yeah. Having said that, now, this phenomena of people hungering for the Torah, which is a fulfillment of prophecy, Hinei yamim ba'im, behold, days are coming, Yishlachti rav ba'aretz, when I will send the famine to the land. It's not a famine for bread or water, but, the very words of Hashem. We're very distracted here in Israel. I'm talking about prior to COVID-19.
Yeah.
We've got a very powerful, wealthy Iran that wants to destroy us, wealthy with, American taxpayer money gotten from the last administration. There are a lot of things going on. We've got, we're 3,000 years old, but we're 72 years young.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take time. It's going to take time. And again, the other problem is, and you can think just back in the last 5 or 6 years, Mike, people that we've known personally, I won't name names, who have been involved with this, and in reality, then all they're doing is spewing anti-Semitism and, anti-Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
But as I state all the time, because I'm all about mutual respect, you can't disdain Judaism and claim to love your Jewish brothers and sisters. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it.
Yeah.
But you can't have disgust on basic Jewish concepts. You can't.
Well,
you're judging.
Yeah, it's difficult to have a dialogue when you don't have trust.
Yeah.
Okay, so mutual respect has to have, as part of its makeup, has to have mutual trust. I can't respect you unless I trust you. We have things going on, and maybe we'll do this on a different program that will lead into some real crazy discussion. But this whole thing recently with God TV, this has set back relationships, and maybe people don't understand that, and it's one of those that only crazy people would ever do a video on a subject like that. So maybe we'll put it on the list, right?
I wouldn't wait more than a week to do it.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, well, stay tuned, folks. So Hanoch, everyone, thank you for putting up with, there's nothing we can do about internet connections and a little freeze up here and there, but I think the message comes through. So Chag Sameach to you in the land. And last words?
Again, I want to encourage people to be in touch with me. Go to my website, Kol Yehuda, KOLYEHUDA.com. Write to me. Stay in touch.
Yeah.
putting out videos, blogs. Be in touch, guys.
Get on Facebook. All right. Hey, Hanok, we went over 1,900 people yesterday on the Shema Israel site.
Woo!
Yeah. I mean, I'm approving people in the Philippines, literally in countries that I have to look and go, where is that country? I've never heard of it before. So this is amazing of what is going on.
Fulfillment of biblical prophecy.
There you go. All right. Hak Sameach. Talk soon.
Take care, Mike. Bye-bye.